The first civilization. In the cradle of time, before the pyramids of Egypt, before Greece, Rome, or even the legends of the Bible, there was a land, lush, fertile, and alive, between two mighty rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates. This was Sumer, the birthplace of civilization. Here, over 5,000 years ago, humanity took its first great leap, building cities, creating writing, and mapping the stars. And from the baked clay of their tablets, a story emerged, one so ancient, so powerful, that it continues to echo through the ages. They called their gods the Anunnaki, those who came from the heavens. According to the Sumerians, these were no ordinary deities. They were powerful beings who shaped the earth, created humankind, and ruled the destinies of gods and men alike. Who were they? Where did they come from? And could these ancient stories hide a truth long forgotten? The birth of the gods. In the beginning, there was no sky, no land, no light, only the swirling chaos of water and darkness. From that abyss came An, the god of the heavens, and Kai, the goddess of the earth. From their sacred union, the first divine children were born, the Anunnaki, the royal offspring of Anu. They were radiant, immortal, and mighty beyond imagination. Each was given dominion over part of creation. Enlil, lord of air and wind, became the ruler of the sky and storms. Enki, god of water and wisdom, commanded the rivers, the oceans, and the secrets of life itself. Ninhursag, the Earth Mother, nurtured the soil and every living thing. Utu, the shining sun, rode his chariot across the sky, bringing justice to all. And Inanna, goddess of love and war, the morning and evening star, embodied passion and power in equal measure. Together they shaped the world. They raised mountains and carved valleys, filled the rivers with fish and the forests with life. They walked among their creation, watching, guiding and ruling from their celestial thrones. Yet, as the world took form, even gods discovered that creation requires labor. The toil of the gods. The younger gods, known as the Igigi, were tasked with maintaining the earth. They dug the canals, tended the gardens, and mined the precious resources of the land. For centuries they worked under the gaze of their masters, the Anunnaki. But over time, discontent grew. Their work was endless. The heat was unbearable. Their cries reached the heavens. And so, one fateful night, the Igigi laid down their tools. They surrounded the great temple of Enlil, shouting in anger. The world's first rebellion had begun, a rebellion of the gods themselves. The Anunnaki Council convened. The mighty Enlil was enraged. These workers defy us. Who will labor if they will not? It was Enki, ever the wise and cunning one, who offered a solution. Let us create a new being, one made of flesh and blood, strong enough to toil, but clever enough to serve. Thus began one of the most mysterious acts in all of ancient myth, the creation of humankind. The creation of man. In the city of Eridu, beneath the shimmering temple of Enki, the gods gathered clay from the riverbanks. They mixed it with the blood of a slain divine being, one who had rebelled against his masters. The goddess Ninhursag moulded the clay, her hands shaping the first human form. Enki whispered sacred words, life stirred within the clay, and then a miracle. The figure rose, it breathed, its eyes opened, and so humanity was born. The first man created not in sin, but in service. A being forged to carry the weight of the gods' labor. But Enki, moved by compassion, gave humanity something more, the spark of divine wisdom. Within each human heart he placed a fragment of the gods' own consciousness. Thus began the delicate bond between God and man, one of dependence, duty, and destiny. Humans tilled the fields, built temples, and made offerings to their divine creators. The Anunnaki watched with satisfaction as the earth flourished beneath their guidance. For a time there was peace, a golden age of balance between heaven and earth. The age of kings and temple. Civilization blossomed. In cities like Uruk, Nippur and Lagash, magnificent temples rose, ziggurats that stretched toward the heavens like stairways for the gods. Priests offered sacrifices. Kings claimed divine descent, calling themselves chosen by the Anunnaki. Under their rule, humanity thrived. Writing was invented, cuneiform, etched into wet clay to record trade, law and worship. The earliest tales of creation, kingship and the divine order were written in these symbols. The Sumerians believed that everything, from harvest to rainfall, depended on the favor of their gods. The Anunnaki were not distant deities. They were rulers, present and powerful, who could reward or destroy. But with human prosperity came something else: noise. The world grew crowded. The sounds of life, hammers, voices, laughter, rose into the heavens. And for the first time, the gods became restless. The Great Flood. The Epic of Atrahasis tells us what happened next. The great god Enlil, disturbed by the ceaseless noise of humankind, could bear it no longer. "These creatures are too loud," he thundered. "Their clamour disturbs my sleep. I will silence them." One by one, calamities were unleashed upon the earth: famine, plague, and drought. But each time Enki, the friend of humankind, secretly intervened. He taught them to dig wells, to farm cleverly, to survive. Finally Enlil resolved to end it once and for all. He summoned the council of the Anunnaki. "Let there be a flood," he decreed, "a great deluge to cleanse the world of man." Bound by an oath of secrecy, the gods agreed. But Enki could not watch his creation perish. In the darkness of night, he whispered through the wall of a reed hut to a righteous man named Atrahasis. "Build a great vessel," Enki said. "Take your family, your animals, and the seed of every living thing. The flood is coming." Atrahasis obeyed. He worked in silence as the skies darkened. Then the heavens opened. For 7 days and 7 nights the storm raged. Mountains vanished beneath the waters. The earth trembled. Even the gods themselves wept in fear. When the flood finally subsided, Atrahasis released a dove. It returned with a leaf, a sign of life reborn. Humanity had survived. Enlil was furious when he discovered the survivors. But Enki reminded him, "We made them. Without humans, who will worship us? Who will bring offerings?" And so the gods relented. They set new boundaries: shorter human lifespans, fewer children, and a fragile peace between heaven and earth. It was the end of one world, and the beginning of another. The withdrawal of the gods. In the ages that followed, the Anunnaki withdrew from the earth. Their temples stood, their statues gleamed, but their voices grew silent. Kings now ruled in their stead, men who claimed to carry divine blood. They called themselves the shepherds of the gods, guiding humanity in their absence. The Anunnaki were said to have returned to the heavens, yet their influence lingered in every stone, every ritual, every prayer. The Epic of Gilgamesh speaks of these gods, powerful, immortal, unreachable. It tells of Utnapishtim, the survivor of the flood, who was granted eternal life by the Anunnaki themselves. It tells of man's endless search for immortality, and his realization that the gift of life, not eternity, is the true blessing. But buried beneath the sands of Mesopotamia, something even stranger would later emerge, a new interpretation of these ancient stories. The modern mystery. Fast forward thousands of years. In the 20th century, a new theory captured the imagination of millions. The writer Zechariah Sitchin, studying ancient Sumerian tablets, proposed a radical idea: that the Anunnaki were not gods of myth, but visitors from the stars. He claimed they came from a distant planet called Nibiru, a world that enters our solar system every 3,600 years. According to Sitchin, they arrived on Earth nearly 450,000 years ago in search of gold, a metal they needed to stabilize their atmosphere. At first, they mined it themselves, but eventually, as the Sumerian texts describe, their workers rebelled. To solve this, Enki and Ninhursag created a new species, a hybrid of the Anunnaki and early humans. Through genetic manipulation, they produced Homo sapiens, intelligent, adaptable, capable of following orders. Sitchin wrote that the ancient phrase, "those who came from the heavens to earth," was not metaphor, but memory, a record of extraterrestrial visitation. He argued that the great cities of Sumer were not mere human inventions, but colonies established by these beings, places like Eridu, which he called the first city of the gods. In his view, the pyramids of Egypt, the megaliths of South America, and the alignment of ancient temples were all part of a vast Anunnaki legacy, a planetary network of knowledge left behind. Most scholars reject these claims, saying there is no scientific evidence for such a civilization. But the theory endures, stirring the imagination of millions who still wonder. What if it's true? Between heaven and earth. Perhaps the truth lies somewhere in between. The Sumerians saw their gods as beings of immense power, descending from the sky in bright chariots that roared like thunder and shone like the sun. They described them wearing helmets, carrying strange tools, and possessing the power to fly. Were these metaphors or memories of something real? Modern archaeologists have found carvings that seem to depict winged figures holding mysterious objects resembling modern instruments. Ancient texts mention fiery boats of heaven and beams of light descending from the stars. Even the Bible echoes these ideas, the sons of God who came down to earth, the Nephilim who took wives among the daughters of men. Could all these stories be fragments of a single forgotten truth? Across every civilization, Sumerian, Egyptian, Mayan, Hindu, we find the same recurring pattern. Beings who came from the sky, who taught mankind the secrets of civilization, and who promised one day to return. Coincidence or continuity? The legacy of the Anunnaki. Whatever their origin, the Anunnaki left behind something undeniable, a legacy of knowledge and belief that shaped human destiny. They gave us writing, cuneiform, the first system of recorded language. They gave us the concept of law and justice, astronomy, agriculture, and kingship. The Sumerians saw order and purpose in the universe, all traced back to the decrees of their gods. Even today, their influence lingers in religion, art, and science. The Great Flood became the story of Noah's Ark. The Garden of the Gods became the Garden of Eden. Enki's forbidden knowledge echoes in the serpent's whisper. It is as if the myths of Mesopotamia became the foundation upon which later civilizations built their understanding of the divine. And somewhere within those myths lies a quiet truth, that humans, though mortal, are capable of divine greatness. The return of Nibiru. Sitchin's followers believe the planet Nibiru is real, a wandering world that moves in a vast, elongated orbit, returning near Earth every few thousand years. Each return, they say, brings upheaval, floods, climate shifts, even the rise and fall of empires. Some astronomers, though skeptical, have noted strange gravitational anomalies beyond Pluto, a possible Planet 9 lurking at the edge of our solar system. Is this the same world the ancients once called Nibiru? If so, could its inhabitants, the Anunnaki, still exist? And could they one day return? The idea may seem fantastic, yet it taps into something deep within us, a longing to reconnect with our creators, to know where we came from, and to understand why we are here. The message of the gods. The sands of Mesopotamia have long buried the cities of the gods, but beneath the dust, the story of the Anunnaki endures, a whisper from humanity's dawn. Perhaps the Anunnaki were gods, perhaps visitors, perhaps only symbols of our own higher potential. But in their story, one message shines through, that we were made not just to serve, but to create, to build, to dream, to seek knowledge, just as they did. Every invention, Every act of compassion, every question we ask, is the spark of Enki's wisdom still burning within us. As the stars wheel overhead, we might wonder, are we still being watched? Or are we, at last, the watchers ourselves? From the clay of the earth, the gods shaped mankind. From the spark of their essence, we inherited curiosity, courage, and wonder. And as we look once more to the heavens, perhaps, just perhaps, the Anunnaki are looking back. When the gods left Earth, when the floodwaters receded and the world was reborn, the Anunnaki, those great gods of heaven and earth, withdrew. Their temples stood empty, their voices faded from the wind, but their shadow lingered. In the hearts of kings, in the symbols carved into stone, and in the stories whispered from generation to generation. It was as if the gods had left their kingdom, yet never truly departed. This is the story of what came after, the lost age of the Anunnaki. An age of forgotten temples, forbidden knowledge, and mysterious echoes that still reach us across the sands of time. The fall of Sumer. The great cities of Sumer, Ur, Uruk, Lagash and Eridu, once thrived beneath the watchful eyes of the gods. But over centuries the rivers shifted, the soil hardened, and the cities began to die. The Sumerians believed it was divine punishment. Their tablets speak of the gods withdrawing their favour, of temples desecrated, kings abandoned, and storms sent from the heavens. The narrator's tone deepens. Because of the sins of mankind, the scribes wrote, the gods decreed their destruction. The last king of Ur, Ibisin, prayed to the gods for deliverance. But the skies remained silent. Armies invaded, the ziggurats crumbled, and just like that, the world's first civilization fell. Yet from the ruins of Sumer rose a new power, Babylon, and with it a new retelling of the ancient stories. The gods reborn in Babylon. Centuries later, the Babylonians revived the myths of the Anunnaki. They reshaped them into a new cosmic order, one that placed the god Marduk at the center. In the Enuma Elish, Marduk battles the chaos dragon Tiamat, slays her, and creates heaven and earth from her divided body. After his victory, he assigns the Anunnaki their roles, some to dwell in heaven, others in the underworld, maintaining the balance of creation. These texts, older than the Bible, speak of divine councils, of judgment, of the ordering of stars and time. The Babylonians saw their world as an extension of the heavens. Their temples were designed to mirror the stars, sacred stairways reaching upward toward the god domain. Each ritual, each festival, was not mere ceremony, but a reenactment of cosmic events, keeping harmony between gods and men. And though the names changed, Enlil became Bel, Inanna became Ishtar. The old spirits of Sumer never truly died. They lived on, transformed, in every temple fire and every prayer whispered beneath the moon. The biblical echoes. When the Hebrew exiles lived among the Babylonians, they too absorbed fragments of these ancient tales. In their scriptures, the book of Genesis, echoes of Sumer still whisper. In Genesis, man is formed from the dust of the ground, just as Enki and Ninhursag formed humanity from clay. A great flood cleanses the earth, just as the deluge of Atrahasis wiped out humankind. Even the story of the Nephilim, the sons of God who came down to the daughters of men, mirrors the Sumerian tales of divine beings mingling with mortals. The line between myth and revelation begins to blur. What the Sumerians called the Anunnaki, the Hebrews called Elohim. Different names, perhaps, for the same remembered powers. Across cultures, the same pattern emerges. Divine beings descend, alter the course of humanity, and depart, leaving behind law, order, and memory. The hidden knowledge. As the centuries passed, stories of the Anunnaki faded into obscurity. But secret knowledge, they said, remained, hidden in tablets, temples, and stars. In the ruins of Mesopotamia, archaeologists uncovered strange texts, spells, rituals, and astronomical charts that seemed centuries ahead of their time. The Sumerians knew of all the planets visible today, including some they shouldn't have known. They mapped constellations, lunar eclipses, and celestial cycles with precision unmatched for millennia. How could a Bronze Age people possess such cosmic knowledge? Some say it was observation, patience, and mathematics. Others whisper it was something more, a legacy of their heavenly teachers. The Enuma Anu Enlil, one of the oldest astronomical collections, describes stars as the writing of the gods. In their night sky, the Sumerians saw not random lights, but divine signatures, a message from the Anunnaki themselves. The technology of the gods. Across ancient Sumerian art, one symbol appears again and again. Beings with wings, holding strange instruments, standing beside objects that resemble modern devices. One relief shows Enki and Inanna beside what looks like a pine cone in one hand and a bucket in the other. To scholars, these are sacred tools of purification. To others, they look eerily like handheld instruments, perhaps for genetic work or energy manipulation. Ancient astronaut theorists claim these carvings depict the Anunnaki using advanced technology, wrist devices, antennas, even what resembles spacesuits. One tablet shows a god seated before a large disk with controls, reminiscent of a pilot in a cockpit. Skeptics call these coincidences, but the similarities are hard to ignore. And so a question remains. Did the Sumerians invent the idea of gods, or record something they once witnessed? The gods of other lands. The Anunnaki may have ruled Sumer, but their story does not end there. Strangely, their images, winged beings, serpents of wisdom, sun discs, appear across the world. In Egypt, the gods Ra and Osiris descend from the heavens to bring order and agriculture. In Mesoamerica, the Mayans tell of the feathered serpent Kukulkan, who came from the sky to teach mankind. In India, the Vimanas, flying chariots of the gods, thunder across the skies, carrying deities with weapons of fire. Different names, different lands, but the same story, beings from the heavens descending to teach, to rule, and to depart. Is this mere coincidence, or the same event remembered through different eyes? It is almost as if, wherever humanity looked, the Anunnaki had already been there. The mystery of the ziggurats. Rising from the plains of Mesopotamia are colossal stair-step temples, ziggurats, built thousands of years before the pyramids. To the Sumerians, these were not just temples. They were ikur, meaning mountain houses, the literal homes of the gods. The ziggurat of Ur, dedicated to the moon god Nanna, soared nearly 100 feet into the sky, aligned precisely with celestial movements. Priests ascended its steps, carrying offerings, believing that at its summit, heaven and earth met. Modern engineers marvel at their precision, built without steel, yet surviving 5,000 years. The Sumerians said these were landing places for the gods, gateways where the Anunnaki could descend from their heavenly chariots. And when we compare these with the pyramids of Egypt, the temples of Teotihuacan, or even the step pyramids of Cambodia, one wonders if these were built from the same blueprint, a pattern spread by travellers from beyond. The return of Nibiru Zechariah. Sitchin's boldest claim was that the Anunnaki came from a 12th planet, Nibiru, on an elongated 3,600-year orbit. According to his interpretation, each time Nibiru nears Earth, great changes occur. Floods, extinctions, the rise and fall of civilizations. He believed the last close approach may have occurred during the flood, recorded in Sumerian tablets and echoed in Genesis. If that pattern were true, the next approach could be distant, or already underway. Astronomers in recent years have detected hints of a massive body far beyond Pluto, dubbed Planet 9. Its orbit, mass and gravitational pull fit eerily well with Sitchin's descriptions. Could Nibiru be real? And if so, Are its inhabitants still watching? The Sumerians said the Anunnaki would one day return when the stars are right, to judge what humanity had done with their gift of knowledge. Perhaps they never left at all. The DNA of the gods. Modern science has revealed something remarkable. All humans share a single maternal ancestor, mitochondrial Eve, who lived roughly 150,000 to 200,000 years ago. To ancient astronaut theorists, this is no coincidence. They suggest this marks the moment when humanity's genetic code was altered, upgraded by an outside intelligence. The Sumerian texts support a similar idea, the Anunnaki mixing their divine blood with clay, creating a hybrid being, half god, half man. Could it be that ancient myth preserves the memory of a genetic experiment, the first conscious act of creation on Earth? Mainstream scientists disagree, but even they admit the leap from primitive hominids to modern humans happened with astonishing speed. Our brains doubled in size, our tools advanced overnight, our languages blossomed, as though something had accelerated evolution itself. If the Anunnaki were real, this may have been their masterpiece, the shaping of a species in their own image. The wars of the gods. In later myths, we find hints of conflict. Gods battling gods, brother against brother. The era epic tells of fiery weapons unleashed upon cities, burning them to ash. Archaeologists have found layers of ancient Sumerian cities that show signs of sudden extreme heat, vitrified stone, melted surfaces, as though struck by energy beyond the power of primitive man. Were these the divine weapons of the Anunnaki? Some stories speak of Enlil and Enki at odds, one desiring to destroy mankind, the other to protect them. It is a pattern repeated in myths across the world. The war in heaven, the rebellion of Lucifer, the battles of the gods in India's Mahabharata. Perhaps these were not merely moral allegories, but memories of a cataclysm retold through the language of myth. The legacy of Enki and Enlil. The Anunnaki were not one, but divided. Enlil, stern and authoritarian, believed humanity was to serve. Enki, compassionate and curious, believed humanity was to learn. These two opposing forces shaped not just Sumer, but the entire human journey. Obedience versus freedom. Control versus knowledge. In ancient temples, priests prayed to Enlil for order and law, but secret sects honored Enki, the bringer of wisdom, the one who defied heaven to save mankind. Perhaps within the symbolism of serpent and eagle, of forbidden fruit and divine punishment, we find echoes of this cosmic rivalry. A tale not of good and evil, but of two visions for humanity's destiny. The last temples. Over the millennia, the great temples of the Anunnaki were swallowed by desert sands. Their cities became mounds of clay. Their names, once carved in stone, were forgotten. For thousands of years, their stories slept, until the 19th century, when archaeologists unearthed the first cuneiform tablets. When these were translated, the world was stunned. They told of gods who created man, of floods, of celestial beings, of star maps, and kingship descending from heaven. It was as if the lost world of the Anunnaki had been reborn. And though scholars debated the meaning, one truth was undeniable. The roots of human civilization reached deeper and farther than anyone had imagined. The gods within. Perhaps, in the end, the Anunnaki were not gods from beyond the stars, but reflections of something within ourselves. They embodied our deepest instincts, our thirst for knowledge, our longing for purpose, our struggle between creation and destruction. When the Sumerians wrote of gods shaping man from clay, perhaps they were describing the birth of consciousness itself, the moment humanity awoke and looked to the heavens, asking, "Who made us?" That question still echoes today, in our science, our art, our faith. It is the same ancient curiosity that drove Enki to create and mankind to wonder. Whether the Anunnaki were divine, extraterrestrial, or purely symbolic, they represent the origin of the human story. our first attempt to understand the mystery of existence. And perhaps in their image, we continue that creation every day, through the civilizations we build, the stars we reach for, and the truths we dare to seek. The gods of memory. The sun sets over the ruins of Ur. Wind whispers through crumbled walls where priests once sang hymns to the stars. In the distance, lightning flickers, illuminating the ziggurat, a silhouette against the dying light. The narrator concludes, voice steady and poetic. They came from the heavens, the ancient ones said, and shaped the world. They gave mankind breath and wisdom and the fire of curiosity. Then they vanished, leaving only stories written in clay. But perhaps the Anunnaki never truly left. Perhaps they live on in every question we ask about our origins, in every spark of wonder that turns our eyes toward the stars. And when we gaze upward, searching the night sky for signs of life beyond, perhaps it is the same gaze our ancestors cast 6,000 years ago, waiting for the gods to return. Music swells, the camera pans upward, from the ruins of Sumer to the glittering Milky Way. The stars glow like ancient eyes. For the story of the Anunnaki, the narrator whispers, is the story of us, the children of clay, born from the dust, yet dreaming of the stars.